So what is a biennial plant? That's what we're going to talk about in today's video and why you want to plant some. Let's do it. Hey there, my name is Nicole Burke and I am the author. I wrote a book, y'all. It's called Kitchen Garden Revival, and guess what it's about? Kitchen gardens. So fun. So if you haven't checked it out yet, I would absolutely love it. Even if you don't buy it, just go to Amazon, Google Kitchen Garden Revival, and check it out today. Now, what I want to show you is biennials in my garden and why you want to grow some. Biennials actually have turned out to be one of my favorite things to have in the kitchen garden. I'm going to tell you why. Biennial, have you heard that word before? I don't know. I mean, bi means two, right? And then ennial, I think, somehow means year. So 2 years, that's what we're talking about here. You've probably heard the word annual when it comes to gardening, and probably perennial. So annual means that a garden plant finishes its life cycle within a year, usually within a season. So an example of an annual here in my garden would be radishes. So radishes are an annual, I'm pretty sure. Radishes go into the garden as seed. They finish their entire life cycle before the season ends. A lot of things in the kitchen garden are annuals, meaning they go in, they planted by seed, they do their thing, and they're done. And they may produce seed, they will produce seed for the coming year, but they finish all of that within 1 year. Then you have perennials. Perennials mean a plant that can last for years in the garden, so more than 2 years in the garden. An example of a perennial in my garden would be oregano. So oregano can last year after year after year. I have clients in Houston who have oregano that might be 4 or 5 years old. I was just looking at my mom's oregano in her kitchen garden. We put that in 2018. And it's huge. It's been there for 3.5 years. So usually most of the herbs in your garden are perennials. So rosemary, oregano, thyme, sage, they are perennials. They can be perennials. And so a lot of times that word perennial also depends on the weather or the climate. So there are some things that were perennial in Houston that aren't perennial to me here in Chicago because it's too cold, if you know what I mean. But perennial means a plant could last and wants to extend its growing for many years. So that's annual, perennial. Now let's talk about biennial. So as you probably guessed, it doesn't mean that it lasts for years and years, and it doesn't mean that it just needs 1 year. It means it wants about 2 years to finish its life cycle. So I have over the years found that biennials perform really well for me in the kitchen garden, and they last really well. So even last year, I was noticing in the fall, it was about September, October, and I still had some plants that actually seemed more beautiful in October than they had seemed all year long. And I was kind of walking around noticing which plants those were. So one was an eggplant. A couple were pepper plants. Now those are not, those actually are tender perennials. For me here, they're annuals. So those are beautiful, but then plants like Swiss chard and parsley, celery, and kale. Those plants were fantastic in September, October. Now, if I did the math, those plants had been in the garden for more than 6 months by that time. My tomatoes looked spent. I had already pulled them out. Some of my other pepper plants, a lot of my lettuces had come and gone. But the Swiss chard, the kale, the parsley, and the celery all looked fabulous and were producing tons for me. So I want to show you what these look like earlier on. So hopefully, fast forward, we'll check back in here in the fall. But let me show you what the biennials look like soon after planting. So here, this is Swiss chard. It was planted by transplant about a month ago. So maybe a little bit more. Maybe we're at like 6 weeks from planting now. So you can see it's really starting to leaf out. Swiss chard is a plant that will stay in the garden at least 2 years before it produces seed. So it's coming in here and it knows, hey, I'm about to settle in here because I want to be here for 2 years, which is pretty awesome. Kale is another biennial. So you can see this red Russian kale. I started this from seed indoors in February. I transplanted it out end of March, and this is now beginning of May. So it's been in here for about 6 weeks. And you can see, again, it's really starting to establish itself, growing lots of new leaves, and it's just getting nice and happy. You can see I cut from this plant at least weekly for my kale smoothies. Then back behind here we have celery, and this celery again was planted right around the same time as a transplant, and celery is doing the same thing. So it's just settling in for the long haul. It's going to be here for 2 years. It's going to have nice thick stalks, and it'll keep growing new leaves and new stalks from the center just like that. I've got a row of celery here. And then finally, we also have parsley. So parsley is here on the edge of the bed. This particular kind is curly parsley, and it's going to do the same thing. So parsley wants to stay in the garden for at least 2 years, and it'll just slowly grow, establish itself. Parsley and celery both are Apiaceae families, so they're going to push down a tap root, and they'll just stay in the garden as long as they possibly can. So just in this bed, I have at least 4 types of biennials. Now I believe there are other brassicas that are biennials too. Cabbage, actually, I could be wrong, I'll check. Cabbage, I think, is a biennial as well. I know Brussels sprouts are a biennial. There are a good number of brassicas that are also biennials along with the kale. But the reason why I love growing biennials is because they just last longer in the garden, and I feel like I get more for my time and money and space. Like I said, these go in now. I'm harvesting from them right now, so I'm cutting kale leaves and Swiss chard leaves. I'm cutting from the parsley and the celery. But 6 months from now, when a lot of these plants have finished, when the spinach is gone, when I've pulled up the peas, I'm going to still be harvesting kale and Swiss chard. Now for my climate here in Chicago, it does oftentimes make some of these biennials annuals. So the Swiss chard I found really cannot hang on with a really heavy frost or a heavy snow. It will try, it'll make it through a couple of frosts and maybe even some light snow. The way I could keep it here long term is to have a frost cloth or even a cold frame over these plants. So if I were able to keep the temperatures just a little bit higher, 10 or 15 degrees higher, these plants would most likely make it through winter and come through the spring back to next year and make it through an entire next season. So we'll see if I can pull myself together and get some cold frames here this fall. But that is what a biennial is. So if you've heard the term thrown around or you've never heard it before, I hope that this encourages you to try to grow some biennials yourself. You can start them from seed or you can start them from transplant, either way. And if you're in a milder climate, these kinds of plants are a fantastic way to get a lot of bang for your buck, because it's not like you're going to have this and it's just one and done. That kale plant you can harvest from for literally at least 18 months to 2 years. What will happen around the 2-year mark if the optimal conditions are there for the plant not to die under extreme weather, then these plants will go to seed. So they'll produce a tall center stalk, create flowers, and those flowers turn into seeds. And then the plant is ready to start the process all over again. So there you have it, annuals, perennials, and biennials. For me, I like to have a mix of all 3 in my garden. I've got perennial herbs, I've got biennial plants, and I've got a lot of annuals too. That ensures that I've got something growing almost all the time, and it also ensures that come fall, these biennials are going to be fantastic. So tell me which biennial you're most interested in growing in the comments. And don't forget to check out my book, Kitchen Garden Revival, on Amazon or at gardenary.com/book. As soon as you buy it, let us know at hello@gardenary.com by sending us your receipt. And we've got a free gift that we'd like to give you to keep you growing. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye.